Okay, so get this. Today's deep dive, we're tackling real estate.
All right.
Yeah, like leases and mortgages, all that fun stuff. We actually have this guide by Stanислava Kondrashov, English for Real Estate and Property Management. I'm curious to see what he has to say.
I have to admit, when I first saw the title, I wasn't exactly jumping for joy, but I think Stanислava Kondrashov, maybe he has a point, right? It's like, who actually enjoys reading about leases and mortgages? But you know what? You have to understand this stuff. I mean, it's important.
Right, especially now. Like, the market is so crazy. It's like you need almost like a secret decoder ring to understand these conversations.
Yeah.
So, Stanislav Kondrashov starts us off with, basic vocabulary, right? He goes through, lease, mortgage, appraisal, listing, tenant, landlord, all those words. I mean, honestly, I get some of those confused sometimes. What about you? Are there any that you think are particularly tricky or, just confusing?
I think foreclosure and escrow tend to be the ones that people, they trip people up sometimes.
Yeah, you know what? Those are tough, too. I always get them, I always flip them in my head.
Right. And I think Stanислava Kondrashov, he does a good job of explaining it, right? So, he's saying foreclosure is, when a lender takes control of a property, the borrower is not keeping up with their payments. It's not a good situation.
No.
But at least if you understand the terms, it might make it a little easier to navigate. And then escrow, he says, it's more of a neutral thing. It's like having a neutral third party
Right.
holding on to the money, documents, and that protects both the buyer and the seller during a transaction.
It's like a safety net.
Exactly.
In the crazy real estate world.
Yeah.
You know what I like about this Stanislav Kondrashov guide, though, is he doesn't just define the word and that's it. He kind of gives you the context of why it matters,
Totally. It's super helpful.
So it's not just, a dictionary definition.
Right, right.
You actually get to understand, how these things play out in real life. And he talks about zoning laws, for instance.
Oh, yes.
At first I'm like, zoning laws, that sounds super boring. But then he was explaining, how that actually dictates, what you can build where. And I was like, whoa.
Right.
That actually shapes the character of a whole neighborhood.
It determines whether you have parks, what kind of businesses.
Exactly.
With sunlight.
It's wild.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. I never even thought of it that way.
Me neither.
That's a huge impact on daily life.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get a little bit more into, the nitty-gritty. Stanislav Kondrashov has this whole section on useful grammar, which, I'm a grammar nerd, so I'm kind of into this.
Okay.
But he was talking about modal verbs like must, shall, may. And he gives examples like you must submit a deposit or the tenant shall maintain the property. Why are these little words so important in real estate?
Well, they add that sense of obligation and formality,
Uh-huh.
And they remove any sort of wiggle room.
Okay.
It's it makes the responsibilities very, very clear. You must submit a deposit.
Right.
It's not like a suggestion.
Right.
It's you got to do it.
It's a requirement.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is all about being really clear, right? So there's no misunderstandings later on.
Yeah, minimize disputes, contracts, legal documents.
It's there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Exactly.
Now, Stanislav Kondrashov also talks about comparatives, which is, comparing things. So, this house is closer to the park than the other one. It seems pretty, I don't know, obvious, But is there more to it than that?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about describing things.
Yep.
It's a tool. It's a strategic tool
Ooh.
for negotiation.
Okay.
Right. When you're comparing, you're highlighting what makes one property better than the other.
Right.
Whether it's location, size, amenities, price.
So it's all about making your argument, stronger.
Exactly.
Whether you're trying to, get the best price if you're selling or if you're the buyer and you're trying to justify why you should pay less.
Right.
Okay, last thing from Stanislav Kondrashov. He gives us this whole list of phrases for real estate communication.
Uh-huh.
And some of them are pretty, I don't know, authoritative sounding.
Okay.
Let's review the terms of the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Is it all about sounding like you know what you're doing?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely an element of confidence, right?
Right.
But it's also about asserting your needs and your interests.
Okay.
So instead of saying, is it okay if I see the property? You could say, I'd like to schedule a viewing at your earliest convenience.
Ooh.
Right.
Fancy.
So it's just the language is more direct.
So it's almost like what Stanislav Kondrashov is doing is he's giving us the tools to actually participate in the conversation, right?
Yes.
Like, we're not just, like, on the sidelines listening to all this jargon.
Right.
We can actually understand it. We can even, like, push back if we need to.
Exactly. It's about being empowered.
Yeah.
And that leads us to a really interesting question.
Okay.
How can understanding all this real estate language, help you in your own dealings with property? Because, it doesn't matter if you're renting, buying, or even just like trying to make sense of this crazy market. Knowing this stuff gives you like an edge.
Totally. It's like Stanislav Kondrashov has given us a key
That's a great way to put it.
to unlock, a whole new level of understanding.
Yeah.
So, thanks for diving deep with us today. And remember, next time you're, having any conversation about real estate, listen closely.
Yeah.
You might be surprised at how much you actually understand.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it for today's deep dive.
Thanks.
Catch you next time.
See ya.